Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paradyme Podcast. We're so grateful that you're here. This week, we're going to be discussing aphorisms 251 through 256, concluding his chapter 8 titled Peoples and Countries. So we're going to be reading up to chapter 9. This comes from Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. Beast of a read. We are almost at a year reading this. And so if you guys are following along, we are so excited that you are. Drop a comment down below. What's your favorite aphorism so far? Before we jump into it, like the video, subscribe to the video, hit that little bell next to the subscribe button so you can stay up to date on when we're posting these videos. So we'll go right ahead and jump into it with aphorism 251. It must be taken into the bargain if various clouds and disturbances, in short, slight attacks of stupidity, pass over the spirit of a people that suffers and wants to suffer from national nervous fever and political ambition. For instance, among present-day Germans, there is alternately, the anti-French folly, the anti-Semitic folly, and the anti-Polish folly, the Christian romantic folly, the Wagnerian folly, the Teutonic folly, the Prussian folly. Just look at those poor historians, the Sybils, the Treitschkes, and their closely bandaged heads, and whatever else these little obscurations of the German spirit and conscience may be called. May it be forgiven me that I, too, when on a short daring sojourn on very infected ground, did not remain wholly exempt from the disease, but like everyone else, began to entertain thoughts about matters which did not concern me, the first symptom of political infection. About the Jews, for instance, listen to the following. I have never yet met a German who was favorably inclined to the Jews, before World War II, by the way. And however decided, the repudiation of actual anti-Semitism may be on the part of all prudent and political men. This prudence and policy is not perhaps directed against the nature of the sentiment itself, but only against its dangerous excess, and especially against the distasteful and infamous expression of this excess of sentiment. On this point, we must not deceive ourselves that Germany has amply sufficient Jews, that the German stomach, the German blood, has difficulty and will long have difficulty in disposing only of this quantity of Jew, as the Italian, the Frenchman, and the Englishman have done by means of a stronger digestion. That is the unmistakable declaration and language of a general instinct, to which one must listen and according to which one must act. Let no more Jews come in, and shut the doors, especially towards the east, also towards Austria. Thus commands the instinct of a people whose nature is still feeble and uncertain, so that it could be easily wiped out, easily extinguished by a stronger race. The Jews, however, are beyond all doubt the strongest, toughest, and purest race at present living in Europe. They know how to succeed, even under the worst conditions. In fact, better than under favorable ones. By means of virtues of some sort, which one would like nowadays to label as vices, owing above all to a resolute faith which does not need to be ashamed before modern ideas, they alter only, when they do alter, in the same way that the Russian Empire makes its conquest. As an empire that has plenty of time and is not of yesterday, namely, according to the principle, as slowly as possible. A thinker who has the future of Europe at heart will, in all his perspectives concerning the future, calculate upon the Jews, as he will calculate upon the Russians, as above all the surest and likeliest factors in the great play and battle of forces. That which is at present called a nation in Europe, and is really rather a resfacta than nata. Indeed, sometimes confusingly similar to a resfita quita, is in every case something evolving, young, easily displaced, and not yet a race, much less such a race are perenus. As the Jews are such nations, should most carefully avoid all hot-headed rivalry and hostility. It is certain that the Jews, if they desired, or if they were driven to it, as the anti-Semites seem to wish, could now have the ascendancy, nay, literally the supremacy over Europe. That they are not working and planning for that end is equally certain. Meanwhile, they rather wish and desire, even somewhat importunely, to be insorbed and absorbed by Europe. They long to be finally settled, authorized, and respected somewhere, and wish to put an end to the nomadic life, to the wandering Jew. And one should certainly take account of this of this impulse and tendency, and make advances to it. It possibly betokens a mitigation of the Jewish instincts, for which purpose it would perhaps be useful and fair to banish the anti-Semitic bawlers out of the country. One should make advances with all prudence and with selection, pretty much as the English nobility do it. It stands to reason that the more powerful and strongly marked types of new Germanism could enter into relation with the Jews with the least hesitation. For instance, the nobleman officer from the Prussian border. It would be interesting in many ways to see whether the genius for money and patience, and especially some intellect and intellectuality, sadly lacking in the place referred to, could not, in addition, be annexed and trained to the hereditary art of commanding and obeying. For both of which, the country in question has now a classic reputation. But here it is expedient to break off my festal discourse and my sprightly Teutonomania, for I have already reached my serious topic, the European problem, as I understand it, the rearing of a new ruling caste for Europe. Beast. All right, let me pull up this doc quick. What do you guys think? Take a shot.
And well, first let's just say this book was written in 18 what?
83, I think.
Okay, so 1880. So 1880. Let's double check that before we just say a number.
Yeah, people published it. Yeah, it is 1886.
Okay, so the book was written in 1886. You just said this is before World War II. This is before World War I. This is like right after. This is like after the American Civil War.
Yep.
And like this is Europe right now. So, and what he's talking about now, I mean, if you would untranslate it to, if you translate it to fucking modern day, like literature, it would sound similar to narratives that we hear right now. In a lot of ways. So there's nothing new under the sun. Well, he's talking about Germany in particular, but even if you take the word Germany out, because he's talking about all of Europe. Okay, first off, he ends it with, as I understand it, the rearing of a new ruling caste for Europe. And I mean, the core of this aphorism is he's talking about the Jewish people. He's talking about how even in, it seems like the worst conditions for themselves, they still find a way to be highly prosperous, which is like historically true. Okay. They look up, they hold some of the, I think as a people, they have like the most Nobel Peace Prizes, they make up like 1% of the world, yet they own like very successful conglomerates now. Right. So he's saying like German people tend to have like a stereotype for them And he's like, I understand it, and at the same time, I don't think it's like anything to be feared for real, you know. Um, but
Yeah, it's like
he does.
he's condemning anti-Semitism and praising Jewish people.
He, yeah, yeah. I would say that. I would say that he's highlighting that there is anti-Semitism, that there is logic behind it, but there doesn't need to be like a malice aftertaste because of it, because you identified something, you know? But and I think he like it's nuanced because I think he talks about how like the Jewish people, in his words, what it seemed like to me that they wish to be like actually absorbed into Europe, but yet they never actually become absorbed because of because of their culture. But at the same time, they yearn to be a part of the country itself and not be a nomadic people, which they have been, right? But at the same time, he kind of ends it with this new ruling caste of people, and I mean, I think that foreshadows the Jewish people starting the world banking system, and then like them kind of being the new ruling caste of Europe, you know, and uh, yeah,
Yeah, he's it sounds like he wants the Jewish people's intellect and like the German.
you redirected, and he really wants it to be redirected. I mean, he ends it well right before he ends it. He's like, they're genius for money and patience, okay, which is like a traditional Jewish stereotype. Um, and if it could be annexed and trained, which is like a very German thing, annexed and trained, you know, uh, into a hereditary art of commanding and obeying. He's like a perfect little soldier. You know, if we could just take them and turn them into like the perfect German, because they really are, and it's true. Like they do hold the most Nobel Peace Prizes. You know, like
Yeah.
some of the best inventions that we know, like Albert Einstein, fucking shit like that. You know, like these are Jewish people, and they do show up in history. So I think they do tend to stick out and be persecuted. But there's always like a history of truth for people to like draw those conclusions as well.
Yeah. I like how he starts with the qualifier too. Like in this aphorism, it starts with, "We must be taken into the bargain if various clouds and disturbances, in short, slight attacks of stupidity, pass over the spirit of a people that suffers and wants to suffer from national nervous fever and political ambition." And then it goes into began to entertain thoughts about matters which did not concern me, the first symptom of political infection.
I mean, that right there, that's what I was talking about. What if you would translate it to like modern day? It sounds very similar. Like right now, there's a lot of narratives going on, and it's like focusing on this same template that he's talking about, but just replace Germany with America, replace Germany with Europe, replace Germany with this. And it's like a similar narrative. And he's like, just like, I guess be patient that like there's going to be stupidity in a fever of a nation that's like failing, you know, like one of the reasons why, you know, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think of like this whole like free Palestine movement that was going on. These are, outside of being maybe secondarily affected if you have family there or something, but the whole American culture jumping into these thoughts about matters that do not concern them, being the first symptom of political infection. Um, yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. That like you're sticking your nose where it doesn't even need to be. You know, it's like, what else do you have to do? There has to be other things to think about and worry about. So
Well,
yeah,
really, I think the word like infection could show that like literally, if that is someone's, like we all know, like they literally have a Palestine flag in their bio. It's like, dude, like like naming two people from there. Like, no, that you don't know, you don't know from TikTok. Anywho, uh, right then and there, that's a sign of, like you say, political infection. That is a sign to you that their scales of like logistics and principles are like drastically off than yours. Because like why is that such a value in the forefront of your thought? And like you're like, yeah, you know,
an infection that someone else started.
where did Nietzsche is inclined to be like, because I don't think he's obsessed with. I wouldn't even maybe that was an excessive word, but maybe he's like infatuated with the tenacity of the Jewish people. Where does this like? Where did the I can't remember. I don't know if he's talking, but where does it like come from? Where does it rooted in?
Well, I mean, the Jewish people are like we talked about it the last episode. Like they're the people that wrote the first part of the Bible. You know, so and like the Bible is a history book of them being persecuted because they keep disobeying the Lord, and like they've been cursed to be nomadic people, but like the thing that they carry on their back is that they are the chosen people.
Mm.
You know, and like no matter the circumstance, like even if they make up 1% of the world and they don't have a nation to call their own and they get persecuted wherever they go, they control like 90% of the wealth of the world and they control like diplomacy at like the highest level. They've been able to accomplish that. And like, I think that like, he's like, I mean, pretty fucking impressive, you know?
Yeah, sure.
I think that he's drawn on like, these are the truths, but also it's like very quite impressive. And like, you know, I think he sees that like also they wish to become just part of Europe and like be thought of as European, maybe. But at the same time, they can't because like they're so committed to their culture that they can never be European.
Right. Yeah. I have a too long didn't read section here. I'll read it off, but it goes, Nietzsche condemns the nationalist and anti-Semitic stupidity spreading throughout Europe, calling it a nervous disorder of modernity. He praises the Jews as one of Europe's strongest and most enduring peoples and envisions a future where Jewish intellect and German strength merge into a new European elite. His call is for cosmopolitan synthesis, so like secular synthesis, over tribal division, the creation of a transnational, forward-looking Europe led by good Europeans. This idea where he kind of talks about it a little bit later, but he's like the European people itch to just be of one country. You guys remember reading that? They want to be, they just want to be one country. And I think that's speaking about.
So he says, but I think he's 100% incorrect. Like, so he says, but I mean, Europe's tried even in our recent history with like all of Europe being on the euro, right? And then like the pretext, like England wanting to fucking separate from the euro, from Brexit, right? Exactly. So like, and right now these other countries are kind of getting boned because like one country saying we have to do this, that means all of you guys have to do this, and like they're no longer in the they're no longer looking out for their their local constituents. They're looking out for like the entire map, and like no one actually likes that, you know. But like
Yeah.
they've been fucking tricked to thinking that that's like the best for humanity.
Yeah, first step towards globalism.
Yeah, I'm doing that actual that that I guess the study of globalism or like the wantingness to pursue that from like a political power started to began. It probably became before World War One, probably around this time sometime.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a thought that's going back all the way to at least the late 1800s, you know?
Yeah, I mean the World Economic Forum, like just look that up. Look up like who fuck inspired them. I mean, for real, and then look up who inspired the people that inspired the people who were doing the World Economic Forum. So it's kind of a straight line. You can see where it comes from. So
Right. Yep. All right. Anything else to add before we jump to 252? All right. So who wants to read to?
let me get it. Let me get it.
All right.
All right, 252. They are not a philosophical race, the English. Bacon represents an attack on the philosophical spirit generally. Hobbes, Hume, and Locke, an absent and depreciation of the idea of a philosopher. For more than a century, it was against Hume that Kant uprose and raised himself. It was Locke of whom Schelling rightly said, Je méprise Locke. In the struggle against the English mechanical stultification of the world, Hegel and Schopenhauer, along with Goethe were of one accord, the two hostile brother geniuses in philosophy, who pushed in different directions towards the opposite poles of German thought, and thereby wronged each other as only brothers will do. What is lacking in England, it has always been lacking. That half actor and rhetorician knew well enough the absurd muddlehead. Carl Yale? How you say that, Jay? Who cares? Carlyle, who sought to conceal under passionate grimaces what he knew about himself, namely, what was lacking in Carlyle, real power of intellect, real depth of intellectual perception. In short, philosophy, it is characteristic of such an unphilosophical race to hold on firmly to Christianity. They need its discipline for moralizing and humanizing. The Englishman, more gloomy, sensual, headstrong, and brutal than the German, is for that very reason, as the baser of the two, almost the most pious, he has all the more need of Christianity. To finer nostrils, this English Christianity itself has still a characteristic English taint of spleen and alcoholic excess, for which, owing to good reasons, it is used as an antidote, the finer poison to neutralize the coarser. A finer form of poisoning is in fact a step in advance with coarse-mannered people, a step towards spiritualization. The English coarseness and rustic demureness is still most satisfactorily disguised by Christian pantomime and by praying and psalm singing, or, more correctly, it is thereby explained and differentially expressed. And for the herd of drunkards and rakes who formerly learned moral grunting under the influence of Methodism, and more recently as the Salvation Army, a penitent fit may really be relatively highest manifestation of humanity to which they can be elevated. So much may reasonably be admitted that, however, which offends even in the humanest Englishman is his lack of music, to speak figuratively, and also literally. He has neither rhythm nor dance in his movements of his soul and body. Indeed, not even the desire for rhythm and dance for music. Listen to him speaking. Look at the most beautiful Englishwoman walking. In no country on earth are there more beautiful doves and swans. Finally, listen to them singing. But I ask too much. I like to say he hit on, he's like, white people really can't dance, huh? Like he really said that.
No rhythm.
Because when people say white people, they mean people of like British descent, you know? So I guess, again, nothing's new under the sun. He's like, they really are coarse people, and he's like, because they're coarse, they're thinking that I'll double down on a stronger poison to neutralize the little poison, which is the drinking and the coarseness. And so Christianity, they washed out all their sins with an even like tougher thing, is what he said. But he's like, they're good people, but fuck can they not dance? Fuck do they not make good music? Which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah, and they ruin philosophy, is what he's saying. Right? Like, I think he jumps into it a little bit later, but he talks about how philosophy requires creativity, and like the English that he's talking about here, they tend to turn philosophy into like practicality and morality. They lack the creativity and rhythm to do philosophy properly.
Oh, you know what's funny? I was thinking about while you're saying that. I feel like this is like a lost art because it's like almost become taboo to talk about like each culture's like strengths and weaknesses, you know? Like I would say like Greek people, and maybe not today, but historically that would be like philosophy, right? Like the big thinking. And like the Romans, who later became the Italians, they were people of like utility and like brute force. But they really like big thinking wasn't their known thing. They learned big thinking from the Greeks, right? And so like they absorbed, and like the Greeks became the brain, you know? And it's like I feel like traditionally like Germans are known to be mechanical, engineer thinking, right? And like them being very like not solid is the word. Just mechanical, not artistic. Mechanical is a good word, right? And so I feel like that's like a lost art because it's almost become taboo to even have culture, and especially like if you're a European, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the culture now is like, you're supposed to look at everybody on an individual basis. And I agree for certain things, but there are some things we take from culture, you know?
Well, there's some things lost in that, like like there's like even within our own country. Like I'm a guy who's raised in Virginia, and like not in like in a particular part of Virginia, by the way, too, and like that is a culture that like whether I like to or not, I carry. And same thing with you guys living in California, you know. And at the same time, to zoom out, you guys are still American, and like you'll feel that culture if you go somewhere else.
Right.
You'll feel like how alien your culture is when you go to a different place, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Thank-
All right. Let's see here. I mean, I think we pretty much nailed it. The idea of Christianity. Did anybody have any strong thoughts on that? How it talks about how to use it kind of as like a poison, a stronger poison to take out the smaller poison, and it still has the same feeling to him as like an alcohol or
Well, I think no matter what, he just tries to make the recurring theme that every culture uses Christianity incorrectly, by the way. He says the Germans use it incorrectly. He says the English use it incorrectly. And I think they all use it to fit their need of like their spiritual whole, like back to what I was just saying, the Germans are mechanical people. So they looked at the Bible as a manual for life. Right. And like that, not artistically, the English are like coarse, rough people who like enjoy literally poison like that, like a pub, right? That's what they're known for. And so like they go overindulgent in the Bible to wash that down. That makes sense for them too. I just don't think he makes a connection why like he's like, I don't need that hole to fill me. And so he's always like explaining how those people use it. That's like my thought.
Yeah. I'm starting to think his like overall view on Christianity is that it's used as a mask across cultures in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. He's like highlighting like how these different cultures like use it differently. Like for the English, it's a different mass than for the Germans, but like it's like it bothers him because he's like, you could be so much more.
Okay, I have a question. Do you think the Republican Party here in America uses Christianity as a mask?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you think it's just the phenomena of like the faith system in itself that causes that? Or, I mean, other religions are used as masks as well too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, the liberals use fucking the pride flag as a mask, you know? It's all to achieve a means.
the Middle East uses like their religion to like as a mask to like Shahir Allah, and they want to bring Shahir Allah here, and like it's like a way of control, and what their religion backs up their like their manifestation like of doing that,
Yeah.
So yeah,
And like ultimately I could see how it's used as a mask. I don't know if it was in this book, I think it was, but like how there's the politicians, they have good ideas, but they end up becoming the rabble, the mob, and ends up echoing ideas that seem undeep and believe.
yeah, like no matter what, like these people like who all of a sudden are like using Christian values to like twist you to vote what they want. They're like Christians, like Jesus didn't have borders, so we should let immigrants in. Like it's the Bible says Israel, like those who bless Israel will be blessed, so we need to give Israel all of our money. Like I'm tired of like they do that all the time, because they know it'll work for a lot of people, because like a lot of people aren't invested enough, they're invested just enough. And so like it's like what he's talking about right now,
Yeah, you meet people where they're at and manipulate them to get what you want.
Yeah, they're like, we have to do these things. Like Fox News said that Jesus said that we have to do these.
I mean, that's the whole reason Trump chose Mike Pence, right? Just like he had an appeal to an evangelist crowd. And then coming out with a Trump Bible, that's crazy. All right, let's see. I have anything else in here? I thought it was an interesting idea. The masks idea. Yeah. All right, I think we covered it pretty well. I mean, we don't even have to read the too long didn't read because we've covered basically every bullet point here. So, ready to jump into 253?
Yeah, boys.
Someone send it. It's a big boy.
Does anybody want it or?
Wet your whistle, bro. Get ready. Yeah.
I got it. I'm gonna wet that whistle. All right. There are truths which are best recognized by mediocre minds because they are best adapted for them. There are truths which only possess charms and seductive power for mediocre spirits. One is pushed to this probably unpleasant conclusion now that the influence of respectable but mediocre Englishmen, I may mention Darwin, John Stuart Mill, and Herbert Spencer, begins on gaining the ascendancy in the middle class region of European taste. Indeed, who could doubt that it is a useful thing for such minds to have the ascendancy for a time? It would be an error to consider the highly developed and independently soaring minds as specially qualified for determining and collecting many little common facts and deducing conclusions from them. As exceptions, they are rather from the first in no very favorable position towards those who are the rules. After all, they have more to do than merely to perceive. In effect, they have to be something new. They have to signify something new. They have to represent new values. The gulf between knowledge and capacity is perhaps greater and also more mysterious than one thinks. The capable man in the grand style, the creator, will possibly have to be an ignorant person, while on the other hand, for scientific discoveries like those of Darwin, a certain narrowness, aridity, and industrious carefulness, in short, something English, may not be favorable for arriving at them. Finally, let it not be forgotten that the English, with their profound mediocrity, brought about once before a general depression of European intelligence. What is called modern ideas, or the ideas of the 18th century, or French ideas, that consequently against which the German mind rose up with profound disgust, is of English origin. There is no doubt about it. The French were only the apes and actors of these ideas, their best soldiers, and likewise, alas, their first and profoundest victims, for owing to the diabolical Anglomania of modern ideas, the âme française has in the end become so thin and emaciated that at present one recalls its 16th and 17th centuries, its profound passionate strength, its inventive excellency, almost with disbelief. One must, however, maintain this verdict of historical justice in a determined manner and defend it against present prejudices and appearances. The European noblesse of sentiment, taste, and manners, taking the word in every high sense, is the work and invention of France. The European ignobleness and the plebeianism of modern ideas is England's work and invention.
All right.
All right, David, Devin, take a stab at it.
Yeah.
What you get?
More difficult for me.
The sentence, like I highlighted this sentence, it would be an error to consider the highly developed and independently soaring minds as specially qualified for determining and collecting many little common facts and deducing conclusions from them. As exceptions, they are rather from the first in no very favorable position towards those who are the rules. I thought I've tried to like think about that sentence. I couldn't really pick it apart too much, but yeah.
Go ahead. Well, I think to explain that sentence, you got to zoom out to, like, the whole idea of kind of what he's talking about. Like, I think he's talking about, okay, these mediocre minds, or so he says, okay, these new Englishmen, like people like Darwin, who kind of like simplified the world, and like he's like, it's a new idea, like things evolve through selective mating, and that's how the world was made. And like prior to him, even if we would have learned that, they would have rolled that under like isn't God so amazing that happens, right? But like they thought they were these big geniuses and they simplified life down to evolution, or like that's just not the truth. Like it's part of the truth. And he's saying like these people that are really good about collecting these little datas and like check out these little patterns, they think that they have like discovered the truth of like the cosmos with this. And he's like, that's such like a shallow way of thinking. And he's like talking about Darwin, how he's got such a narrow way of thinking. And like prior to him, like a real Renaissance man, he would have been, wow, the creator is so amazing that like the animals here, the organisms here have the ability to adapt, and like he would have like, that's another piece of the puzzle. I still don't understand the whole thing yet, but I've learned a new thing. Where these guys, they go, I figured the whole thing out. Evolution, book closed. I'm no longer going to believe in God because Darwin discovered evolution.
No, the mediocrity is coming from the simplifying of this new, like under the guise of like this new discovery, and he like puts some of the puzzle pieces together. He thinks it's completing the whole puzzle.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like the magic of the universe is solved. I did it, and like he did discover something, but like we zoom out, there's like way more to like the universe and like thinking about things, And I feel like he's talking about at this era of European mind, they were trying to deduce their way of like figuring things out to like, okay, life is just like physics, right? Physics is the universe, right? And like they're like, we can measure physics, and like we figured out where life comes from. It's from evolution. So like there's no such thing as the creator. He didn't make us in 7 days. We can figure it all out within science. But like if that's the truth, then like we would have like, we don't know, like there's laws in physics that we still don't understand, right? Like there's tons of stuff we don't understand. So it's like naive of us to think that like we figured it all out. I think that's where he's getting at.
No, that makes sense.
And the Europeans believe themselves too, by the way. You know that South Park episode where they love smelling their own farts? You know what I'm talking about? We were to San Francisco. It's a whole thing in San Francisco where like they drive Priuses and stuff. They drive the Priuses and stuff, and like everyone who drives a Prius, they love talking about how like they're saving the world because it's really good on gas or whatever. They fart and like they're like, it just sounds like it's like they're just jackasses, like they believe their own shit is the joke. They believe their own saying, And it's like I think that's kind of what he's getting at. It's like not only to have like they think they've like reinvented the wheel, but like they believe it too. And like it's caused their thinking to be shallow actually compared to their forefathers.
So that's an example from like, like Darwin discovering evolution or these like different species of animal that have similar like traits. But can you give me an example, like a modern day example of like maybe how this has shown up? Because I feel like he's very, like what he's talking about from back then is like spot on with some things like today,
I mean, again, like nothing new under the sun. Just like the thing we talked about, like the previous aphorism, like it's the human condition. Like even now, I remember seeing vans. Like the Jesus fish. I would see the Jesus fish, but with legs because they're like, I believe in evolution. It's like it's literally the same fucking thought. You know what I'm saying? Like they're saying because some scientist has proven that animals adapt over time because of selective breeding, that disproves God. It's like, are you guys fucking retarded? It's like that to me, that proves it even more. It's like even more so that the puzzle is like more complex than I could ever imagine. Like there's this funny meme going around where it's like a picture of the human anatomy and all our nerves and like veins and stuff. And it's like terrible cable management.
Yeah.
And then like the joke is that like, if humans would design a human, it would just be like 2 straight pipes of cables. It's like, it's like, and that's why we have a hard time developing a humanoid robot because like the nuance of like making us work is like so fucking insane that like, it's not as simple as cable management. Like actually we have the best cable management in existence to make all this work. Like even right now, they can't figure it out with the robots, But they think they figured out that there's no God because of science. It's like, we can't even we make ourselves if we try from scratch.
Yeah, he he's talking about like these two different types of geniuses or scientists, right? There's the people that like compile information and come up with hypotheses using all these different pieces of information. And there's people that come up and create something new, right? Um, One that comes to mind for me, wait, what is his name?
I mean, create something new.
Yeah, like this.
The light bulb.
So there's this guy in geology. His name is Alfred Wegener, and he came up with the idea of continental drift, right? So the continents used to be connected in Pangea. They separated. He used fossils, a bunch of different, geologic lithologies, like rock types that span across different oceans, like the west coast of Africa, east coast of South America. And so this was an idea that was posed. And since then, geology as a whole has used that as a foundation to stand on. Right. So like he was a creator. And then now we have a bunch of discoverers that are taking that idea and linking a bunch of different things together. Like, for my thesis with how subduction works, right? That's how we get the movement of continents and things like that. So, and the creation of mountains, all of those things were pieced together because of a creator. And what he's saying is like, he's saying most ideas appeal to a mediocre person, like these connected ideas that are simplified. And we don't really see too many creators anymore.
I don't know. I mean, I disagree. Maybe the space at which creators has moved, but like Bitcoin is the creation. I guess it's a recreation of a thing that's always been used, but in a new space. Like
Recreation of gold.
I mean, the invention of Facebook. Like, what is that, right? And like
Right.
that set the like foundation for like every social media app ever after it. Maybe MySpace would be the first one. I'm just saying like the first all electric car, the nuclear power, the atomic bomb, the airplane, the Model T.
Right. Yeah, it's like the saying, there's nothing new under the sun. There's new ways to like repackage old ideas, right?
And the old ideas like travel, like from horses, and like Henry Ford was like, "I'll make a fucking tractor that you can drive." He fucking did that shit, and now we're driving Teslas. Like Elon Musk, they fucking took that shit and repackaged it. But there is like that is new. Like the Model T was revolutionary, right? The atomic bomb was like completely like we knew what energy was, but it was still completely new.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about it, can't think of many things that are absolutely new. Like blockchain technology is a brand new thing.
Right. Boom. That's a great example.
Right. But it's a repackaging of a ledger is what it is. It's just a new way for a ledger.
It is a repackaging of a ledger. Yes, I agree.
But it is brand new. Right. So I wonder how he was looking at things through like the lens is like, there's nothing new being created. Like the will to power is his idea. That's a creation.
I mean, sorry, go for it, Dylan.
Yeah, I think how John broke the chapter down a bit earlier when David explained and John explained, like almost as if someone forget who he's used, but almost like a person that came into life and discovered a puzzle piece and thought that was the whole puzzle. I think that is probably more significant to me in this section, more than like someone needing to be a creator to create a new profound idea. It's more like a gear in the shaft, but if you're a recognized mediocre mind, or like this idea of someone that comes in and creates like a massive puzzle piece, and then you just have a larger puzzle piece than some other creators, right? But you have to solve the whole puzzle. There's no way one person's going to be able to do that.
That's true. That's
Right.
for sure true. That's for sure true. And by the way, I like the gear analogy. Even if you solve a huge piece of the puzzle, like even if you don't solve the whole thing, what is awesome is that it'll spin a bunch of little gears, which I guess what Jay was talking about too. If the Pangea thing was like a huge gear, all the branches off of it are like little gears being spun because they saw like this first big thing first. So that's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, the idea of continental drift was a big gear, and then we attached like subduction,
Just because of that, the
divergence,
off of it. Yeah.
all these different things that came together to create this machine,
Well, that you call geology.
which we call geology, right? So a little bit of this too long didn't read section. Nietzsche claims that many of these modern truths, scientific, moral, and social, appeal to mediocrity rather than greatness. The rise of English empiricism and utilitarianism, utilitarian thought represents the dominance of average intellects over creative genius. True philosophers do not merely discover truths suited to the masses, they create new values and ways of seeing. Modernity's obsession with practicality and equality has depressed European thought into a culture of comfortable mediocrity. So, like, all of these things are packaged in a way that the average person can take it and, like, it's a slogan thing, right? 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. They take that, they put it in their pocket, and they're like, okay, this is comfortable, and this is practical, and I could just keep that with me.
My old coworker used to talk about this all the time. I'm pretty sure we've hinted at it, like, because we used to talk about Animal Farm all the time, and I forget how he told it to me, but like my best way of explaining it is that like over time, literature, rhetoric, or the comprehension of knowledge becomes a lot easier and more digestible to like amassed amounts of people. So in turn, the equation produces dumber people, but essentially we should be raising the bar because things are getting easier, but that's not actually what's happening. On paper, you would think that what's happening because people have knowledge, more access to knowledge, but essentially it's like lowering the tide, like it's making people more comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, how he broke it down, but he's like, he's talking to me about some theory, but
I mean,
if you make the math easier, then we're not going to have good mathematicians.
Yeah.
It just like enters in the calculator, why do long division? Or it's like no one's improving their vocabulary because like they're no longer reading, they're watching like 30-second videos on TikTok. And it's just because like it's literally just more digestible. It's not because of like they're thinking about it one way or the other. It's just like this is way, way more digestible. It's the Dorito. Yeah, it's the Dorito. It's like awesome, It's like, and every bite's so fucking awesome. And I'm like, it hits. You gotta take like discipline to not that you have to eat like steak and green beans. Like that's what Nietzsche is. So or fucking,
Yeah.
I love steak, but probably.
All right. Anything else to add before we go to 254? Nope. All right. Devin, you want 254?
Yeah, I got it.
All right.
Even at present, France is still the seat of the most intellectual and refined culture of Europe. It is still the high school of taste, but one must know how to find this France of taste. He who belongs to it keeps himself well concealed. They may be a small number in whom it lives and is embodied. Besides perhaps being men who do not stand upon the strongest legs, in part fatalists, hypochondriacs, invalids, in part persons overindulged, over-refined, such as have the ambition to conceal themselves. They have all something in common. They keep their ears closed in presence of the delirious folly and noisy spouting of the democratic bourgeois. In fact, it besotted and brutalized France at present sprawls in the foreground. It recently celebrated a veritable orgy of bad taste, and at the same time of self-admiration at the funeral of Victor Hugo. There's also something else common to them. A predilection to resist intellectual Germanizing and a still greater inability to do so. In this France of intellect, which is also a France of pessimism, Schopenhauer has perhaps become more at home and more indigenous. What word is that? indigenous than has ever been in Germany, not to speak of Heinrich Heine, who has long ago been reincarnated in the more refined and fastidious lyrists of Paris, or of Hegel, who at present, in the form of Taine, the first of living historians, exercises an almost tyrannical influence. As regards Richard Wagner, however, the more French music learns to adapt itself to the actual needs of the Amir modern, the more will it Wagnerite. One can safely predict that beforehand. It is already taking place sufficiently. There are, however, 3 kings which the French can still boast of with pride as their heritage and possession, and as indelible tokens of their ancient intellectual superiority in Europe, in spite of all the voluntary or involuntary Germanizing and vulgarizing of taste. Firstly, the capacity for artistic emotion, for devotion to form, for which the expression of pure l'art, along with numerous others, has been invented. Such capacity has not been lacking in France for 3 centuries, and owing to its reverence for the small number, it has again and again made a sort of chamber music of literature impossible, which is sought for in vain elsewhere in Europe. The second thing whereby the French can lay claim to superiority over Europe is their ancient, many-sided, moralistic culture, owing to which one finds on an average, even in the petty romancers of the newspapers and chance boulevardiers de Paris, a psychological sensitiveness and curiosity of which, for example, one has no conception, to say nothing of the thing itself. In Germany, the Germans lack a couple of centuries of the moralistic work requisite thereto, which, as we have said, France has not grudged those who call the Germans naive. On that account, give them condemnation. Why am I still around that one?
Commendation.
Commendation for the Germans naive. On that account, gave them condemnation for defect. On the opposite, as the opposite of the German inexperience and innocence in Waldpick Psychologica, which is not too remotely associated with the tedious of German intercourse, and as the most successful expression of genuine French curiosity and inventive talent in this domain of dialect thrills, Heinrich Bell may be noted, that remarkable, anticipatory, and forerunning man who, with a Napoleon tempo, anticipatory and forerunning man who, with a Napoleonic tempo, traversed his Europe, in fact, several centuries of the European soul. As a surveyor and discoverer thereof, it has required 2 generations to overtake him one way or other, to define long afterwards some of the riddles that perplexed and enraptured him. This strange Epicurean and man of integration, the last great psychologist of France. There is yet a third claim to superiority. In the French character, there is a successful halfway synthesis of the North and South, which makes them comprehend many things, and enjoys upon them other things, which an Englishman can never comprehend. Their temperament turned alternately to and from the South, in which, from time to time, the provocal and Lorraine blood froths over, preserves them from the dreadful northern gray, from sunless conceptual spectrism, and from poverty of blood. Our German infirmity of taste, for the excessive prevalence of which at the present moment, blood and iron, that is to say, high politics, as with great resolution, been prescribed according to a dangerous healing art, which bids me we wait and wait, but not yet hope. There is also still in France a pre-understanding and ready welcome for those rarer and rarely gratified men who are too comprehensive to find satisfaction in any kind of fatherlandsome and know how to love the South when in the North and the North when in the South. The born Midlanders, the good Europeans, for them, Bizet has made music. This latest genius who has seen a new beauty and seduction, who has discovered a piece of the South in music. Oh, let's choose a word to guard.
Yeah, dude, I have so much pink highlighter in here for words that I don't know. Yeah. Me.
Go for it, Jay.
All right, so it says here, Nietzsche sees France as the last great home of European taste and psychological intelligence. While democratic France decays into vulgarity, a secret France of artists and thinkers continues the old tradition of lucidity, grace, and balance. Unlike the English and Germans, the French preserve an equilibrium between intellect and sensuality, thought and art. In them, Nietzsche glimpses the possibility of a renewed European spirit, one that is youthful, musical, and Mediterranean. So he's holding the French in high regards for three reasons. First, they have the capacity for artistic emotion, for devotion to form, for which the expression art for art's sake, along with numerous others, has been invented. So emotion. So it's not just mechanical in a sense. Their intelligence is capable of emotion as well.
Yeah.
And secondly, they have a many-sided moralistic culture, owing to which one finds on an average, even in petty romanciers of the newspaper and chance boulevardiers de Paris. So they have a psychological sensitiveness and curiosity. So they're, again, not strictly mechanical like an Englishman or a German. They also possess sensitiveness and curiosity. And the third is that in the French character, there is a successful halfway synthesis of the North and South. And so he has this mention of North, which is that mechanical characteristic he's talking about, and South, which is this loose, emotional, can play around, be creative type of descriptive. So he said that this makes them comprehend many things and enjoins upon them other things, which an Englishman can never comprehend. So they're motley, so they're capable of emotion. They are capable of being mechanical and also being creative. And they are willing to embrace artistic emotion. So he's saying, he calls them Midlanders at the end there, the born Midlanders. So they're capable of kind of toting the line between mechanical and creative is ultimately what he's saying.
A good balance.
Yeah. He doesn't say all of France, but he calls it the France of artists. So there's like a subculture in France that has all of these qualities.
Mm.
All right. So there were some words in there that I didn't know. So besotted is strongly infatuated. So that was a new one. And then predilection. I've heard it before, didn't know what it meant. It's a preference or special liking for something, a bias in favor of something. Yeah, so they have a bias to resist intellectual Germanizing. So, yeah, becoming mechanical. So that's all I have for this one. Anybody else have anything?
No, just a thought that I have is that I think Nietzsche is very observant on different cultures that are like open and welcome to the idea of nuance when it comes to like their way of thought, and then also just their culture and like artistic expression of thought. Like there's a functionality part of it, which is I guess where they derive their morals and stuff. With him, it's like he has an appreciation for art and music, and I think it's interesting that he kind of like he gives props, and then he gives like like praise to artists that he really likes, it's interesting.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
He was born in Germany, so he had born and grew up in Germany. So he had a good idea of what German culture was about. And then he was in Switzerland for a while. He was in Italy and France. So he kind of got to explore around and immerse himself in culture. And he really had his fingers on the pulse, huh?
Yeah. You pass Nietzsche the ox. What is he playing? Should go on, man. Yeah. Pretty much, huh?
Yeah. All right. Who wants 255? I'll take 256. It's a little long.
Then I'll do it.
All right.
255. I hold that many precautions should be taken against German music. Suppose a person loves the South as I love it, as a great school of recovery for the most spiritual and the most sensuous ills, as a boundless solar profusion and effulgence, which as spreads a sovereign existence believing in itself. Well, such a person will learn to be somewhat on his guard against German music, because in injuring his taste anew, it will also injure his health anew. Such a southerner not by origin, but by belief, if he should dream of the future of music, must also dream of it being freed from the influence of the North, and must have in his ears the prelude to a deeper, mightier, and perhaps more perverse and mysterious music, a super German music, which does not fade, pale, and die away, as all German music does, at the sight of the blue wanton sea and the Mediterranean clearness of the sky, a super European music, which holds its own even in the presence of its brown sunsets of the desert, whose soul is akin to the palm tree and can be at home and can roam with big, beautiful, lonely beasts of prey. I can imagine a music of which the rarest charm would be that it knew nothing more of good and evil, only that here and there, perhaps some sailor's homesickness, some golden shadows and tender weaknesses might sweep lightly over it, an art which, from the far distance, would see the colors of a sinking and almost incomprehensible moral world fleeing towards it. And would it be hospitable enough and profound enough to receive such belated fugitives?
That guy loves the South, huh? That boy loves this. The way it's like uses imagery to describe it too. It's like um, whose soul is akin to a palm tree. It holds its own even in the presence of brown sunsets of the desert. Like he used uh, golden shadows and tender weaknesses. Like
So the way I thought about this is that like because Germany is landlocked, okay, when a German does go explore, it's like it's like his, it's like he's blown away by the beautiness of the desert, right? They're not landlocked. They have a huge
no, yeah. Their north side has the ocean.
Okay. Never mind. Take back what I'm saying, though. When I was reading this, I didn't think he was describing Germany, by the way. I thought he was describing other places. And that he's saying that even when you're in these other places, the German music fits that place just as good. Is like what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think he's equating German music to the north and then the Mediterranean to the south, right? So the northern he attributes to like northern music. He contributes a heavy moralistic spirit of German art and calls. I'll read this part. It says Nietzsche warns against the heavy moralistic spirit of German art and calls for a new life-affirming aesthetic rooted in vitality of the South. The Mediterranean is supposed to symbolize clarity, sensuality, and courage. And for Nietzsche, true music must heal, liberate, and embody sunlight, not sickness. And like, I don't think people think about it too much, but Europe, like the UK, Sweden, all that stuff, it is gray year round. It's raining most days. It's gloomy. Think Washington, really. So like, it sounds like he has this yearning for the South where there's like sunlight and it's a little bit looser and like there's palm trees, So I like the kind of imagery he's using. That I wonder if it's just music he's talking about, right? I'm thinking it's a mindset that he's talking about, right? Like it's supposed to be a blend of both of these. You're supposed to be creative, and in the same sense, you should have a mechanical side, right? So he's talking about this super European art that has both of them.
Yeah, but he's like fighting like a losing battle though. Like for example, okay, like California, you guys have some of the best weather in the entire world. And because of that, it has encouraged a lifestyle that is alien to someone who, like, let's say, lives in Maine.
Right.
Right. It's just, you can't help that because you guys live in a beautiful area. Art, stuff like that, like it tends to thrive more because like things are so fucking nice,
Yeah.
And like I feel like how can you make songs about like awesome sunsets and the beach when when like it's cold 90% of the time, but in the summer they do have nice summers. So
Yeah. So you got to find the middle line, find the latitude, dead center, Oregon.
there's just no such thing, right? There's just no such thing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was thinking it's not just music. Like it applies in many different ways, like masculinity and femininity. Sensitiveness versus stoicism. Like the finding a balance is kind of what I think he's talking about. Like when you hear German music, you know it. Like talking to somebody who's pure logic can get annoying, Like you have to embrace a little bit of emotion.
yeah, and then too much motion. Well, we've all talked to women. That's what that is.
Right. Then you start being compassionate for stupid shit.
Or logic isn't an issue.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's really what he's talking about. It's kind of this blend of the spirit, and he's using German music, as kind of a stand-in.
All right, bring us home, dude. Bring us home.
All right, everybody got to lock in. This one's a little long. This is Aphorism 256.
I really
water.
Yeah, I really fucking don't want to, if I'm being honest, but like, we'll do it. Bring us home, dude.
All right. Aphorism 256. Owing to the morbid estrangement which the nationality craze has induced and still induces among the nations of Europe, owing also to the short-sighted and hasty-handed politicians who with the help of this craze are at present in power, and do not suspect to what extent the disintegrating policy they pursue must necessarily be only an interlude policy. Owing to all this and much else that is altogether unmentionable at present, the most unmistakable signs that Europe wishes to be one are now overlooked or arbitrarily and falsely misinterpreted. With all the more profound and large-minded men of this century, the real general tendency of the mysterious labor of their souls was to prepare the way for that new synthesis and tentatively to anticipate the European of the future. Only in their simulations, or in their weaker moments, in old age perhaps, did they belong to the fatherlands. They only rested from themselves when they became patriots. I think of such men as Napoleon, Goethe, Beethoven, Stendhal, Heinrich Heine, Schopenhauer. It must not be taken amiss if I also count Richard Wagner among them, about whom one must not let oneself be deceived by his own misunderstandings. Geniuses like him have seldom the right to understand themselves, still less, of course, by the unseemly noise with which he is now resisted and opposed in France. The fact remains, nevertheless, that Richard Wagner and the later French Romanticism of the 40s are most closely and intimately related to one another. They are akin, fundamentally akin, in all the heights and depths of their requirements. It is Europe, the one Europe, whose soul presses urgently and longingly outwards and upwards in their multifarious and boisterous art. Whither? Into a new light, towards a new sun? But who would attempt to express accurately what all these masters and new modes of speech could not express distinctly? It is certain that the same storm and stress tormented them, that they sought in the same manner. These last great seekers, all of them steeped in literature to their eyes and ears, the first artists of universal literary culture. For the most part, even themselves, writers, poets, intermediaries and blenders of the arts and the senses, Wagner as musician is reckoned among painters, as poet among musicians, as artists generally among actors. All of them fanatics for expression at any cost. I specially mentioned Delacroix, the nearest related to Wagner. All of them great discoverers in the realm of the sublime, also of the loathsome and dreadful. Still greater discoveries in effect, in display, in the art of the show shop. All of them talented far beyond their genius, out and out virtuosi, with mysterious accesses to all the seduces, allures, constraints, and upsets, born enemies of logic and of the straight line, hankering after the strange, the exotic, the monstrous, the crooked, and the self-contradictory, as men, Tantaluses of the will, plebeian parvenus, who knew themselves to be incapable of a noble tempo or of a lento in life and action. Think Balzac, for instance, unrestrained workers, almost destroying themselves by work, antinomians and rebels in manners, ambitious and insatiable, without equilibrium and enjoyment, all of them finally shattering and sinking down at the Christian cross, and with right and reason. For who of them would have been sufficiently profound and sufficiently original for an anti-Christian philosophy? On the whole, a boldly daring, splendidly overbearing, high-flying, and aloft up dragging class of higher men who had first to teach their century. And it is the century of the masses, the conception, higher man. But the German friends of Richard Wagner advised together as to whether there is anything purely German in the Wagnerian art, or whether its distinction does not consist precisely in coming from super-German sources and impulses, in which connection it may not be underrated how indispensable Paris was to the development of his type, which the strength of his instincts made him long to visit at the most decisive time, and how the whole style of his proceedings, of his self-apostolate, could only perfect itself in the sight of the French socialistic original. On a more subtle comparison, it will perhaps be found to the honor of Richard Wagner's German nature that he acted in everything with more strength, daring, severity, and elevation than a 19th century Frenchman could have done, owing to the circumstance that we Germans are as yet nearer to barbarism than the French. Perhaps even the most remarkable creation of Richard Wagner is not only at present, but forever inaccessible, incomprehensible, inimitable to the whole latter-day Latin race. The figure of Siegfried, that very free man, who was probably far too free, too hard, too cheerful, too healthy, too anti-Catholic for the taste of old and mellow civilized nations. He may even have been a sin against Romanticism, this anti-Latin Siegfried. Well, Wagner atoned amply for this sin in his old sad days, when, anticipating a taste which has meanwhile passed into politics, he began with the religious vehemence peculiar to him to preach at least the way of Rome, the way to Rome, if not to walk therein. That these last words may not be misunderstood, I will call to my aid a few powerful rhymes, which will even betray to less delicate ears what I mean counter to the last Wagner and his Parisful music. Is this our mode? From German heart came the vexed ululating, from German body this self-lacerating. Is ours this priestly handulation, this intense fuming exaltation? Is ours this faltering, falling, shambling, this quite uncertain ding-dong dangling? 'Cause sly nun ogling, ab our bell ringing, this whole false and raptured heaven overspringing? Is this our mode? Think well, ye still wait for admission. For what ye hear is Rome, Rome's faith by intuition. I just kept thinking of Ric Flair. High flying, aloft flying, boldly bearing, splendidly overbearing.
Dog dangles.
Roll us driving. Son of a gun.
Balzac, huh?
Yeah, he said Balzac.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay, for whatever reason, my video thing, like, it's like stuck on like that, but whatever. I can't make it not be that. So
Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, it's quite the long aphorism. Let's see here. Ding dong. So just off top, yeah, just off top, he's talking about basically in some parts of this how Richard Wagner was a byproduct of the French spirit, but in some ways he was even better than like us Frenchmen. What do you say? 18th century, 19th? What is that? So he even like exceeded the French, is in one sense. Let's see here. So he believes nationalism is a temporary illness. What do you guys think of that? John's gonna be like, "Oh, America, layer illness."
nationalism does come and go with like the evolving like population and location of people, you know, like the people that made America were originally Englishmen and proud to be them, you know, and then after a few generations, they thought of themselves as Americans, something different. And then like right now we're seeing like the ebb and flow of nationalism within our own country, like right now in England or in Scotland, it's like they're almost making it illegal to be like a native born Scottish person or a British person to like enjoy the history of your culture, because it's would make the new citizens of said nation feel discriminated against. It's like what they're like pitching, So you could say like
Yeah.
that, like they're actively changing. It's a decline of nationalism at the very least right now. So
Right. Yeah. I've encountered this word a lot. AI has been pumping out the word cosmopolitan, right? Didn't know what it meant, but here's the reference. Nietzsche calls for a new European type, anti-Christian, life-affirming, and cosmopolitan. So cosmopolitan means including or containing people from many different countries.
I mean, the cosmos, many
Right.
different things.
That's the point. Yeah, we can think about it like that. But we see even in like modern culture now, kind of like we embraced that for a while, and now like globally, people are like, all right, enough of this bullshit. Like Japan is having protests about it, Scotland, the UK.
I mean, Japan just elected their first ever female prime minister, who's very, very, very like right leaning in her rhetoric, all because like they had one wave of immigrants. They're like, no, we would rather break all prior rules that we've ever like done socially than like allow this to happen any longer.
Right. They would rather the ending of Japan as a whole than ruin Japanese culture. I mean, they're not having enough kids, So it's like we have to bring people in, but they're like, fuck that. Like,
well, they're like, these people aren't Japanese, so like, if we need them to like keep Japan afloat, then it's no longer going to be Japan, and we'd rather go down with the ship.
Right. We'd rather Japan
just ends as a whole. Yeah, like we're not actually afloat with a bunch of fucking H-1B visas.
Right. And I mean, it's interesting because, I've mentioned this a couple of times, but it's only bad when America does it. Right. Or, I mean, the UK too. But like when Mexico does it, it's totally fine. They want the Americans and Europeans out of Mexico City because it's raising prices. It's changing the culture. Oh, that's totally fine. Japan does it, totally fine. But like when we do it or the UK does it, it becomes a problem. And it's like on a global scale, you're seeing it seems to happen.
I disagree. Like the narrative is that it's a problem, and you have to zoom out to be like, okay, they want you to feel that you cannot hold that opinion, because like they're working at a global level to usher in a cosmopolitan world, a one world thing,
Well,
so like, yeah, globalism. So like if the media and the rhetoric from the media and the rhetoric for our policies are all like aimed by the same people that want that, then of course it seems like that you're not allowed to hold that opinion. And like the other countries, the reason why they're allowed to hold that opinion is because like Japan's a different case, by the way. It's because they're like a monolith of a nation. But like
right.
other countries, like you mentioned, like Mexico, whatever, they're already a poor nation that like is easily manipulated. So like mission already accomplished. They don't need to facilitate the end goal, which is what they're doing right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the cosmopolitan. I like living in diverse neighborhoods, but everybody's an American. Ultimately, we all abide by the same rules and practice similar culture.
Well, that's the only way, whether you like it or not. That's the only way to achieve a high trust society is that the majority of the people all have similar culture, because that means they're all on the same page when it comes to rules that we take for granted. That's why there's a bunch of friction in Europe right now and within our own country, is because the new class of immigrants has a drastic culture with the native born class, and they don't have the same social constructs going back for like multi generations. So it's hard for two diverse groups of people to occupy the same space. So it's like a very low trust society with like high crime, high discrimination, because their safety is their safety's on the line. Their kids' safety's on the line, you know? And that's what's going on. And the only way to achieve a high trust society is that the majority of the people are all on the same page. That's why Japan, again, being like a monolith nation, it's like only Japanese people. Like, they're all on the same page. That's why they have like clean infrastructure that works, because there's not like a low caste of people just damaging infrastructure just because they want to cause chaos. But we have that in our country right now, you know?
Yeah.
Can't get on the same page on how to deal with homelessness, for example, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's written here. Nietzsche denounces nationalism as temporary illness in Europe's spiritual evolution. Beneath it lies a will toward unity, the birth of a new transnational European culture shaped by figures like blah, blah, blah. Do you think the nationalism that we experience here in America is a will toward unity?
It just all depends how you think about it. Like, we're a union under God of the 50 states of America. Okay. So I would say America is a will for unity, as long as that you share our principles, and America works because we're all connected via our geography. We're one landmass. But the reason why we stay together, and that's why we used to have allies like England and Canada and Australia, is because we were all similar people from similar backgrounds that had similar principles, which were like Anglo nations that believed in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And like Spain fits under that fold too, because they're a European, they're a Christian nation. So like a lot of what we consider the West are like Christian-based Europeans. Yeah. And America is like a union of that, you know?
Yeah. At least it was.
At least it was. It still is. I mean, in so many ways, it still is. You know, in so many ways, it still is. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd agree with Nietzsche on this one.
I agree with you. I disagree with a lot of stuff too.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's the playbook. Oh, it's like a lot of the things that he's uttering here and his writing are cultural phenomena that we see, like a nation with no borders, right? Like he was writing this back in 1886.
So I just think that there's nothing new under the sun. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like even his stuff wasn't new ideas, you know?
Yeah. But somebody could take this and sound real smart when they talk about it, you know?
For sure.
Ding dong dangling. All right. Anything else to add before I wrap this out?
Let the globalists.
You are not human.
Go to sleep and say your nightly prayer that the globals will not win.
Right. Exactly. All right.
Sovereign man.
Well, that wraps up chapter 8 of Beyond Good and Evil. Next week, we're going to be talking the first aphorisms of chapter 9, titled "What is Noble?" Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Paradyme Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we missed anything, or you want to discuss and engage on some stuff that we talked about, go ahead and drop a comment down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell next to the subscribe button, and follow us on all our social media platforms. All the information you need will be down in the description box below. Thank you guys again. And remember, who you are now equals who you'll be tomorrow. Peace.